Welcome back, all you cool cats and kittens. I'm just kidding around with you. If you've watched Tiger King, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, go back and watch it. Okay, well, anywho, on to the actual honor stuff, learning community stuff. So last week, I talked about the process of getting ready for the Emerging Researchers event, and I did everything that I needed to for that. I called in on Monday morning of the 24th. I called in at about 10 o'clock. I called Domino's and I ordered my pizzas. I got 4 pizzas, and I used the purchase order form and everything. It was good. I went to work. I went through my day, everything. So, well, let me just preface this by saying the Emerging Researchers Informational Night was an event that Lee and Ginny helped organize, and it was open to my LC students and any honor student who was interested in finding out more about the Emerging Researchers learning community, because the upper class learning community for honors has been emerging leaders. Yeah, emerging leaders. And now it's being switched to emerging researchers, just so that way it can help. We're trying to target a larger audience of people, because people struggle with the research competency for the honors program, and this is one way that we think we can do that. So that's what that is about. Anywho, so we did an event about we did an event about the emerging researchers, and talked about, what it is that it's going to be, and everything that is kind of included in that. And the thing that was asked of me was to order pizza using my LC budget, and then to bring that pizza to the event, obviously. And so I went through the process of getting the pizza. I called Domino's. I ordered to put in an order and everything. And I went in and got the pizza, and then brought the pizza to the event and everything. So my day that day was kind of busy. I went to work. I work at the Dakota Meadows Middle School and Prairie Winds Middle School as an after-school math tutor for the middle school after-school program. And that day I was at Dakota Meadows Middle School, which is about 17 minutes away from the university. And so my original plan, I had requested that I leave at like 4:30, because the event was at 5. And so I left. I got there, and I communicated with my coworkers that I was leaving early, and Melanie was okay with it. And so whatnot. And so 4:15, 4:30 rolls around that time. Obviously, I'm sitting there watching time to make sure I can leave. But I had a student who needed help with math homework, and I just didn't find it okay for me to just say, oh, yeah, I have to get up and leave in the middle of helping him. So I helped him finish his math homework. I worked with him and everything. But when we were done, it was like 4:40, 4:43, somewhere in there. And so that I put myself on a pretty tight time schedule, because I still had to go get the pizza and get back to campus and everything. So I bustled my butt. I hurried up and got my car, and I drove over to Domino's. I picked up the pizza at like 4:55, and then drove back to campus. And I was on campus at 5 o'clock, but if you've ever tried to park in the parking lot, it can be kind of a struggle sometimes. And so I panicked, I parked, and I kind of like half sprinted, half ran, with like jog, walk type thing, with 4 pizzas in my hands. And I dropped them off at the place where we were meeting for our event at like 5:07. So I was late to my own event. retrospect, that is my fault. I said it was okay to have an event at 5 o'clock when I work until 5 o'clock. Made sense in my brain that I could have an event at 5 o'clock. So when I get done at 5, because I'm not, but yeah, it didn't work out. It did not work out. But in the end, everything was okay. I got all of the pizza there, all in one piece. And it gave Lee and Ginny time to just sit there and talk with the students. So it was completely okay. That event was good. It was very informational. I had, what was the number? I think 6 or 7 of my students show up. Yeah, 7 of my students show up. And then there were 2 other students who were not in the learning community. So there was 9 total students, which was good. We gave out a couple of applications. I gave out 4 personally later that night, applications for the learning community. So I'm hoping that people are interested in it. It seems like people are interested in it. I think people are excited about it. And I think it's a good change. I think it is going to be a very effective learning community for students in the honors program. So I'm excited for that. I am officially the learning community coordinator for the emerging researchers learning community next year. So I'm excited to announce that personally. And I'm excited to be the learning community coordinator for that. So looking forward to it. And besides that, the emerging researchers night, I didn't do much that week. That week I kind of had an oh crap moment. February I was supposed to do a diversity event. And my original plan for that diversity event was to work with Kenneth Reed in the diversity and inclusion department. And what I didn't realize was that he had a really big conference the last week of February. And so I had already planned out my February before I contacted him. So I didn't really give him much of an option on how to work around my schedule. I gave him the week that he was the busiest in February. So plans kind of fell through with that. And that's good. I think that was a good learning lesson for me in planning events, and that if I want to do an event with some organization or place on campus, that I should work with them earlier and to plan out their events before I plan out my events for the month, just so that way they have full flexibility in my schedule to plan the event. With that being said, I still think it's important to plan out my month in advance for my students. So I don't know. Planning events has been the hardest part of this job. It can get kind of confusing, and it is a lot of work to make sure that my events are beneficial to my students while meeting the requirements for the learning community program, and at the same time fitting into everyone's schedule. It's been one of the most frustrating things is trying to plan events, put in all the effort to make events happen, just to have nobody show up. And I think that's one of the big things that we're working on as a learning community program and the honors program, is how to fix participation in events. So that's that. One thing that I was proud of this week, the 24th to the 28th, is I worked big time with my CA. He also had to have an event, a diversity event before March 6th, spring break, before spring break. And so I worked with him, and I've really enjoyed working with Nathan. Nathan has been wonderful. He's an exceptional CA, and just an overall good dude. So if you see Nathan around campus, give him a little shout out and say hello. he is really good, and he handles his students very, very well. He keeps the floor in check without being overpowering, while still being a friend to most everyone. So Nathan has figured out the balance between keeping people in line and not pissing them off. So I admire Nathan for that, and I've been working with him a lot. He's an upperclassman. This is his second or third year in the CARA position. He's new to Mankato, so I've been talking to him a lot about what works for him in a matter of keeping students in check, how to communicate with them, and stuff like that. And he's been very, very helpful for me in that way. So I appreciate Nathan in that. But we worked together to plan an event for the week of the March 2nd to the 6th, a diversity event. And we came up with the idea, he came up with the idea of doing a peeling back the layers event. And so what our plan was to get a bunch of oranges, draw faces, stereotypical faces on them. So like one had a cowboy hat, one had big lips, one had blonde hair, just buck teeth, just random stereotypes like that. And then we'd hand out the oranges, and they'd go make statements about it like that. So we worked together on that, and we went shopping for the oranges and stuff like that. And so that was the prep for that. My event for March 22nd to the 6th, that happened February 24th to the 28th. And so that was, it's fun to work with them. And then for me, I did a lot of communicating with my students. On March 6th, the honors program had site reviewers come out. And so in the couple of weeks before that, I did a lot of communicating with my students about the site reviewers coming. I had communicated with students, and I worked with them. And a couple of them offered to let us take the site reviewers on a tour of their room and whatnot. So that was nice. And whatnot, and I'll talk more about that next week. But the prep that went into that was significant for me, and making sure that my students went, just because it was such a big event for the honors program. So I put in a lot of emphasis and effort in getting my students to show up. So that took a lot of communicating, and I found that through talking to my students, emailing about that was not effective, because it was long emails, like paragraph long emails, and my students didn't want to read that. So they liked it better if I gave them like a bulleted list through GroupMe, which is a text messaging app. And then just when I saw them in the hallway, just kind of remind them that, hey, this is going on, this is what's going on, so. But yeah, that is the big takeaway from the week of February 24th to the 28th, is the communication aspect, in that communicating with students via email can be kind of tough. So text message works great, and obviously face-to-face contact is the best, hands down the best way to communicate with students. You can portray emotion and just and it is. Next year, I will be trying to contact my students face-to-face as much as possible. And this is what my original plan was, to work on being face-to-face for contact a lot more. I thought about doing weekly meetings, so that way we could talk about stuff in the upcoming weeks. But obviously now that we're all at home, that's not possible. So, but yeah. Oh, and also life update. I applied for professional education. That was due that Friday. So that's exciting, But anywho, alrighty. Good luck with classes, people. Peace out.